Last night we got to practice meeting new people, and in the next couple weeks we're gonna come in contact with a lot of new people. So this is gonna hopefully be very practical for you, but also I hope vision casting as well. So I want you to go ahead and close your eyes, even though I just talked about how we're tired. Hopefully don't get too comfortable here, but I want you to go ahead and close your eyes and picture yourself at either like our freshman floats event or the 901 barbecue, the kickoff. Just kind of get that picture in your mind. The sights, the sounds, the smells, the excitement, all of that. And now I'm going to give you the assignment. Keep your eyes closed. If I were to give you the assignment to go up to someone you have never met, someone you don't recognize, and introduce yourself, initiate conversation, and have a 10 to 15 minute meaningful dialogue with that person. Okay, that's your assignment. Now, if you are completely honest with yourself, how many of you would say that that assignment stirs up some level of anxiety or makes you feel uncomfortable? Go ahead and raise your hands, raise them high and proud, keep your eyes closed. Okay, now keep your hands up, high and proud, and open your eyes. So you are not alone, okay? So for me, it doesn't necessarily bring up anxiety, but it sounds exhausting to me. And so, and definitely uncomfortable. So the reality is we are going to give you that assignment. So this was not so hypothetical. This is your assignment, okay? So, but my hope is that an hour from now, when you leave for lunch, that if your anxiety level is like sitting at a 9 or a 10 out of 10, that maybe when we leave, you can bring it down and it will be more like an 8. So I'm not expecting, God can work miracles, maybe you'll be down to a 1, but I'm not really expecting that. But if we can just bring it down a little bit, make you feel just a little bit more comfortable with meeting new people, then that will be a success. And so we're just gonna give you a few practical tips for meeting someone new. So why are we giving an hour of our leader training to a session of just how to meet people? Well, I think that in our day and age of technology, and I was going to bring my phone up and I forgot as a model, but pretend my smartphone is right here. Yes, I'll use Jim's. With these things always in our pockets, these mini computers and the technology, the skill of initiating conversation and getting to know people has perhaps taken a hit. So according to the Get Next Market Data Report, I found this online. You can go ahead and read that. 1 in 4 people spend more time on social media than they do in face-to-face situations. This statistic serves as a stark reminder of how technology has infiltrated our lives and is impacting our social skills. It highlights the fact that many people are now spending more time interacting with their devices than with other people, which could have a detrimental effect on their ability to communicate and build relationships. This statistic is a powerful indicator of the need to be mindful of how technology is affecting our social lives. So I really do think that, that 20 years ago, some of the skills that we're going to work on today might have come a little bit more natural to that generation because we didn't live with this in our pocket. And so I think this statistic is a bit alarming and a good reminder that we could all, myself included, use a little brushing up on our social skills and go back to the basics. So now I'm going to have you close your eyes again. Do not fall asleep, but picture yourself at that event that I had you picture yourself at like a minute ago. Now, I want you to think about the mass of people, maybe at the barbecue, at the kickoff, at the swing dance event. And you can keep your eyes closed or actually you can open them, but I just want you to think about that group of people as I read you a couple more statistics. So around 63.1% of students felt very lonely during their last 12 months of college. 63.1. That's more than half of you in this room. And based on the loneliness index, your generation is the loneliest of all generations. And 1 in 5 college students would say that they don't have any real friends on campus. I think that last statistic just really hits me, and it hurts my heart for our campus.
and it motivates me to make an effort to try to see people well, move towards them, and step out of my comfort zone to engage with them. Like, I want to meet that 1 out of every 5, you know? I want to talk with the 63%. And I think one thing that Challenge does really well is I think that we do a great job of fostering community and connections with each other, and we have this awesome opportunity to help that 1 in every 5, or that 63%, and bring them into our community. But before we do that, we first have to start by meeting them. And meeting people is not always easy. It's often uncomfortable. But today we're going to work on some skills so you can start a conversation with anybody on campus and be confident that it will go well. That's our goal. So now the first step in meeting someone new is seeing them. So that may seem a bit obvious, but we often overlook the people that are not engaged with others because we are busy trying to find our friends and find people we already feel comfortable talking with. I'm guilty of this. So on an average Thursday night, when Sean hits the last strum of his guitar and dismisses us, what do you tend to do? My guess is you tend to look for your friends and go talk with the people that you're comfortable talking with. But to see the unengaged, you have to take your mind off yourself and see and move towards the people you don't know. I think this fits really well with what Brian just said. Serve is in the word observe. And so the first step in meeting people is to observe and to see them. So if I'm meeting someone new, my goal is to take the attention off of myself and focus on the person and listen to as much of their story as they are willing to share with me. And so in order to do that, I need to create a comfortable environment for them. And so this involves thinking about where I stand, how I stand, where I look, and the questions that I ask. So I'm going to have Aaron come up and help me out here. So when you go up to that person at the 901 barbecue or something at the kickoff or whatever, you should go introduce yourselves. And you might even shake their hand. Let me tell you, good. She's firm. I'm firm. This, awkward. This, awkward. Okay? This is all you need to do. A nice little brief handshake and let go. This, continuing, also awkward. Okay? So anyway, but yeah, just introduce yourself and you might shake your hand. I'm not done with you yet. Don't go too far. Okay. So part of creating a comfortable environment is being mindful of where you stand. You don't want to be too close. This is kind of awkward. This feels like, hey, Aaron, how's it going over there? Also awkward, but probably like 18 inches, 2 feet. Does this feel comfortable to you? I think this feels comfortable to me too. So think about where you stand when you go to meet someone new, okay? Another thing you want to think about is eye contact. Eye contact is key. What eye contact does is it helps that person know that you are listening to them. I think we've all probably been in conversations with people where their eyes are going every which way and not on us. And in that situation, I just am like, hey, are you here? Are you listening to me? Do I matter to you? So eye contact is really, really important as we engage with people. And so a good amount of eye contact to kind of shoot for is that 60 to 70% of your interaction, you're making eye contact. So any less than that, they will feel like you're not really listening. Any more than that, if you like stare them down and don't even blink and are giving them eye contact 100% of the time, that is creepy. Okay, so we want to avoid that. So with that, when you're standing, so we're 18-ish inches apart, I'm making eye contact. Now, it's pretty natural. What we might tend to do is square up. See how our shoulders are square? Now, if we are 30 to 40% of the time supposed to like have our eyes go a little different direction briefly, if we're square up, our options are to look behind them, which for me is not an option most of the time because I am 5'3". I cannot see past Aaron right now, okay? So, but yeah, you could look like above them, which, like I said, for me is an option. That would be awkward. I could look to her right or to her left, like with my eyes a little bit. But what Aaron's going to think is, like, what is so interesting behind me that they're looking at me? And our fourth option is to look down. Yeah, this is not very inviting either, okay? So what I'm going to encourage us to do as we're engaging with people is to just open up a little bit. So see this nice little pivot we both did? Look at this. We angled, okay? And so, not all the way. Okay, yeah. Okay, let's try again. Okay, look. Now, for that, like 30 to 40% of the time that we're not making like direct eye contact, we have more options for our eyes, and the things that I am looking at, we are looking at together. And so now we are having a shared experience because we are opened up a little bit. And so I think that will make it less awkward for me, less awkward for the person I'm engaging with. And it also is like a little bit more inviting because now, let's say Austin wants to join our conversation, he could be invited in because there's space for him. So, see, now this, no space for Austin. Yeah. Here, open door for Austin to come in. So yeah, just think about those things. Where you stand, so the 18 inches, 2 feet apart, the eye contact, and then how you stand. That you just, like now, Aaron and I, we are becoming friends as we are having the shared experience of observing the things around us while getting to know each other. Good, great job, Aaron. So, I may need you later, but I think we're good. So, the last thing we want to do to make our introduction of just meeting someone a comfortable environment is that we want to know their names. So how many of you would say it is hard for you to remember names? Right here. Me too. I am terrible at it. It's not uncommon for me to ask someone their name, and literally 10 seconds later, I'm like, oh no, I already forgot their name. What do I do? And so in those situations, what I do is I ask them their name again. That's humbling and it's hard, but knowing their name is way more important than my pride. So I want to ask them their name again. So even though most of us would say that we're maybe not very good with names, the truth is that we often don't actually hear their name. So what I mean by that is that people can speak about 160 to 100 words per minute, but God has made our brains so complex that we can actually take in 400 to 800 words per minute. So that means that our brains people can't speak fast enough to engage our brains completely, which creates lag time. And so your brain will hear something, but at the same time, it's thinking about something else. For example, right now, you may hear me, but you are thinking, why didn't I grab more snacks? Because I actually am still hungry. Why didn't I grab coffee? Or why didn't I put the creamer in the coffee? Why did I put the creamer in the coffee? I put too much creamer in the coffee. What am I going to have for lunch? What am I going to do after this afternoon? So you are hearing me, but your brain, be honest. How many of you would say that you agree with that statement? You were thinking about other things while you are also hearing me. That is called lag time. Well, the same thing happens when you go to introduce yourself to someone. Your brain is going, and they are not speaking fast enough to engage your brain completely. And so you are actually not hearing their name because of that lag time. And so while hearing what someone is saying, our lag time is simultaneous. Oh, wait, sorry. I think I got ahead of myself. No, I did not. Here we are. Our lag time is saying, like, say this next, tell me this story next, and it's making it harder to actually listen. And so we want to slow our brain down enough that we can actually hear someone's name and ask a question about it. So here are some tricks that have helped me when I meet someone to make their name stick with me a little bit more. So I did this last night. I asked someone, oh, how do you spell that name? Especially if you're meeting internationals. That's really helpful. So I think asking someone how to spell their name can help you remember their name more. A question I like to ask is, oh, do you know what your name means? So I think that can be like something that you're tagging on and connecting to their name. Asking them if there's a story of like how they got their name or that goes along with their name. And then another trick is just repeating their name in conversation. So I might be like, oh, Aaron, tell me about your family. Aaron, what are you studying here at K-State? Aaron, how did you choose that major? So just by repeating their name multiple times in the dialogue that you're having will help their name stick with you. And when you are doing this, you're finding something out about someone's name, and now you know that person better. You get to know them, you're learning something that you didn't know before. So another thing I often do, especially in like the next 2 weeks or something like that, is I like to keep either in a notebook or in a note. I usually do it on my phone. When I get home from an event, do you know what? I actually didn't do this last night, but I need to. It's not too late. I can go home this afternoon and do this. But when I come home from an event, like the His Dinner, like today, what I might do is start a new note in my phone and then put like, okay, Bouquet, Turkish girl, has lived in Manhattan before. And then put Amina, girl from Ghana who studied in Turkey. And just like put some notes and like write down who I've met. So then that way, like if I were to go to the bowling night, I could review all the people I met last night so that if I see them at the bowling night, it might be a little bit easier to recall what their name is. So this is an example, I can't really read it, but this is an example from a couple of years ago. And it's just like, I just kept a note in my phone. And then when I came home from the swing dance, if I met anybody new, I wrote their name in and a little description so I could remember. And this has been helpful. Last year, there was like a couple people that I met, and I kept seeing them on campus. And I think because I wrote their name in my phone and wrote something about them, then it was easier, like when I saw them on campus, to call them by name, and they were really surprised. Like, how did this girl remember my name? What they didn't know is that I had a cheat sheet. So now we're going to put some of this into practice. So I want you to find someone on your ministry team that you do not know. Now, if you already know everyone on your ministry team, you can cross over to a different ministry team. But so I want you to quickly find someone that you don't know, and I want you to practice just doing an initial conversation with them. And so once you partner up, practice meeting someone new. And remember to make it a comfortable environment by thinking about where you stand, how you stand, where you look, and the questions that you ask. And one more thing, to do this successfully today and to do this successfully the first Thursday night or at the kickoff, we need to put these away. And we also need to disconnect them from here. So do that. Practice that today as well. So go ahead, meet someone, like go practice meeting someone new. Okay, do you see your, yes? You can know them slightly. Yeah, you can know them. Okay, everybody look and say when you have your partner, okay, everybody stand up. And when you have your partner, sit down. So when you are initially getting a conversation started, some other things you can ask is like if they have a tattoo, that might be an interesting conversation starter, or if they have like a special logo on their hat or on their shirt or something like that. Those are just all things, just be observant and you can ask about it. So far we've talked about how to get a conversation started. So last night when you were at the His Dinner, I am curious, did any of you, you get the conversation started, you feel like it's going pretty well, and then all of a sudden it starts to flatten out? Did that happen to any of you? Yeah, it totally happened to me. I was talking to this woman from Sri Lanka, and I had learned some things, and I was really distracted by things around me, and I was like, oh no, I don't know where to take the conversation now. And so you're in good company. So right now what we're going to do is talk about how to keep a conversation going, which translates into how to be a good listener. So remember that whole lag time stuff, how our brain is going faster than the words we're taking in? The lag time works against us and can make it harder to be a good listener. Because when somebody's telling us part of their story, the lag time is making us think oh, say this next. Oh, that relates to my story. Oh, I should tell them the story about myself, whatever. And then when we are sharing maybe a story from our lives, they're doing the same thing. Their lag time is going. And we often walk away from the conversation not actually really knowing much about one another because we weren't actively listening. We were thinking more about what we were going to say next, and often thinking about ourselves. And so we need to train our brain and not let it dominate us by not letting it tell us these say this next, tell the story next. because it's going to try. But instead, we want to capitalize on the lag time and use it to ask the question, what did I hear that I could ask a question about? So we're going to watch a short video of a guy that does a great example of like showing us how to utilize this lag time to be a good listener. And here is my disclaimer. This is a video about a training that some students, leaders at OU did together. And this guy, I think his name is Chris, never met the guy, but probably about like 95% of what I'm sharing today, I just got from this video. So nothing original. If we're really being honest, it's probably more like 99%. So I like sat and I was like, okay, that's good, that's good, that's good. So a lot of what I'm saying today is word for word Chris's words. So I just want to give credit where it's due. It's due to this man named Chris that I've never met. But why don't we go ahead and watch and see how he utilizes lag time? Hopefully.
Ask her a question about that, okay? Here's an example. If somebody asked me, said, how long have you lived here? Okay, and I responded by saying, I moved here with my family 10 years ago, okay? The question was, how long have you lived here? The answer would have just been 10 years. But if I answer it by saying, I moved here with my family 10 years ago, I added information on there that you could pick up on and ask questions. One was, what? Anybody got it? Okay, one was that I moved. Yeah. One, those are the questions. Now, here's where I'm going to stop this for a second. Rather than launch to the question, always identify what question you would ask. Always identify the piece of information first. Okay, so you would listen for he moved, he has a family. It was 10 years ago. Now you can craft a good question over one of those three things. Okay, so if you were going to craft a question about family. You could say, you can see a wedding ring, say, oh, so you're married. Tell me about your wife. No, that's too narrow and it may not be correct. So ask big questions. Tell me about your family. See, my family may be my aunt, my grandma, or Chihuahua, okay? It's my family, all right? I shouldn't have to apologize for that. Tell me about your family. Now I get to start off, and now you're going to listen. Your brain is going to say this, say this, say this, but don't let it do it. What did I hear that I could ask a question about? Big question, big open-ended question, okay? So that's what we want to work on. So I need you right now to just...
Okay, so as a recap, we're using our lag time to gather as much information as possible from how they are answering the question. And so in that example, he was like, you learned that he moved with his family 10 years ago. Like that was the information that was gathered. And then you can latch on to one piece of that information that's gathered and ask a good follow-up question. So you want to gather as much information as possible. You want to identify the pieces of information you gathered before you launch another follow-up question. And that way you can craft a question off of what you learned. And you want to ask broad questions, nothing too narrow. So now we're going to practice keeping the conversation going. So you can go ahead and we're going to get back in those pairs. There was a group of, who was the group of three? Was there only one group of three? Okay, okay, what is your name? Sadie, will you be with Dave? He didn't have a partner. Great. So for this, you're going to practice keeping the conversation going. So you need to decide who's going to be number one and who's going to be number two. So look at your partner. Go ahead and hold up a 1 and a 2. Okay, great. That should be decided. So number 1, you are going to be the listener. So it's up to you. Like you're the initiator in this. In our scenario, you're the Christian Challenge leader, and you're going up to the person that you're just meeting for the first time at the kickoff, who might be a freshman, who doesn't know anything about Challenge. This is their first experience at Challenge, okay? So, but if you're number 2, you don't have to pretend that that's you. Just be yourself, okay? But number 1, you're the listener. You're going to set the angle, the distance, the eye contact. You're listening for pieces of information so you can ask good questions. So I want you to set up, we are doing this to practice what we're going to be doing later this week and next week. So be thinking, okay, at the 901 barbecue, what kind of questions might I lead out with? It might be something like, how did you choose K-State? Or what are you majoring in? Or tell me about where you're from, something like that. So you could go ahead and lead out with that if you're number one, because that will give you good practice for what's coming up, because then you can be listening to how they respond and think about, okay, what information can I gather from their answer to what their major is or how they chose K-State that you can ask a follow-up question to. So if I look around and your conversation has died a painful death, number one, no pressure, but that's your fault. So you're going to start with your question, listen for pieces of information, and ask good questions, and keep the conversation going, and try really hard to not tell your story. This conversation is not about you. This is about them. So keep the attention on them and their story. Go. So hopefully that exercise was helpful for you and maybe gave you a boost of confidence for engaging new people as we step onto campus. But if you are still like, oh my goodness, I am terrible at this, that was so awkward. Do you know what? This is a skill, which means that you can grow in it. You can learn it. And so there are some natural giftings that play into it, but I really do think that all of us can grow in this skill. And I would just say, like, if you are still like scared to death about the idea of approaching someone new, then maybe at the 901 barbecue or at the freshman floats event, like the first event or two, like pair up with somebody that is really good at it. And then you can learn from them and just really try to be an observer and like try to engage with them, with someone new. And then hopefully that will help you grow the skill and grow the confidence, but don't stay there. Don't just stay in what is comfortable. Well, I mean, even that's probably not comfortable. But do go out. Try to do it on your own as well. So as we close, I want to leave you guys with a challenge for this year. So I want us to think about, what if when Sean plays the last chord and says, thanks for coming to challenge tonight, see you next week, what if everyone in this room made a decision that instead of going and finding your friend that you feel comfortable with and starting to make plans for the weekend, you committed 10 to 15 minutes of that time, that window, right when challenge is done, to doing exactly what we practiced today, to going up and engaging with someone that you don't know and having an engaging conversation with them, a meaningful dialogue with them. So I just want us to think, there are almost 100 of us in this room. Think about if we all committed to do that, how that would change the culture of our ministry. And so, what if we didn't limit it to Thursday nights? What if we decided and committed that we were going to do this when we go to class on Monday? What if when you move into the Derb or Kramer and you start eating in the dining hall, what if you committed a couple meals a week and said, I'm not going to go sit with all my friends who I'm already comfortable with. I'm going to do this challenge, and I'm going to go meet someone new today, and I'm going to eat with them. I'm going to go look for the freshman who's sitting by themselves and doesn't have anyone at their table, and that's who I'm going to eat lunch with. And so what would that do for the culture of our campus? What do you think God might want to do in your own heart as you start practicing that? So there's a term that we use at the Connector team called 15 Forever. And this is the idea that spending 15 minutes of your Thursday night, or maybe your meal at the Derb or your class period, and if you spend 15 minutes trying to invest in someone else's forever. And so if you commit to introducing yourself and truly listening to that person's story and getting to know them, you might have the opportunity to be used by God in some way to not just make them feel comfortable in that moment, but to actually influence their eternal state. So just think about 15 Forever, just committing 10 to 15 minutes of your Thursday night, of your dining experience, of the first day of class, to just really trying to engage with someone new and get past the what's your name, your major, where are you from, and really get into their story and just ask God and trust Him and see how He might want to use that to influence their forever. So Now, if introducing yourself and carrying on a meaningful conversation is still very intimidating and uncomfortable to you, I want to remind you that it's probably also uncomfortable to the person you're meeting, okay? So there's a good chance that they are feeling more uncomfortable. You know, at least you've been to Challenge before. They maybe have never been to Challenge before. They might have showed up to the kickoff all by themselves because they just saw the sidewalk chalk and they really like ice cream, okay? And so just think about how uncomfortable it might be for them. And so by seeing that person, taking initiative, introducing yourself, and trying to learn their stories and actively listening to them, you are serving and honoring that person. So there's a verse that God has just been putting, it just keeps coming up in my life, I cannot get away from, Romans 12:10, that says, love one another deeply as brothers and sisters, outdo one another in showing honor. And so as you approach yourself to someone and introduce yourself and listen to this story, you are showing them great honor. And so I want us to think about the fact, all the activities that we're going to be doing in the next couple of weeks, like the freshman floats, the kickoff, the swing dance. We're going to do a back-to-school event that we're going to hear more about tonight on the first Sunday of the week. And all of these things, we as a ministry, we are putting them on, which means we are hosting these events. So when I have been in other cultures, we have so much to learn from other cultures about being hosted and about hosting events. And so when I have gone to someone else's home, it's like they are just lavishing honor on me. They're doing everything they possibly can to make it a good experience for me and make me feel comfortable and to keep the attention on me. And so, these events, this room, we are the hosts. So that is our opportunity. That is our privilege to get to do everything we can to outdo one another in showing honor to everybody that comes to these events. When we choose to be uncomfortable to make someone else more comfortable, we are outdoing one another in showing honor. So as we go off to campus this week, let us not forget who is going with us. So Jesus is our ultimate example of someone, if you look at the Gospels, he saw people well, he approached new people, he asked great questions, and he learned other people's stories. And that same Jesus is dwelling in each and every one of us, and he wants to help us as we engage our campus. We care about the people on our campus. He really, really cares about the people on our campus, and he really wants their hearts, and he is choosing to use us to get to their hearts. So now we're going to just give you a few minutes to get out your journals and just think about what we've learned in the last hour. And I just want you to, about meeting new people, and think about what you want your takeaway to be. So you can circle something or just write out a prayer, write something down. It might be just a thought you want to remember, a tool you want to try, or an application you want to make. So I'll give you a few minutes for that.